The following is a Live the Dream Media production.
Hi, I'm Alan Murdoch. For the past 20 years, I've been buying, fixing, and selling properties right here in Southern Arizona. And I want to buy your property. Whether it's a house, apartment, commercial building, or vacant land, regardless of the condition or the situation, I want to talk to you. When you sell to me, I pay cash and it's hassle-free. No repairs, no closing costs, and no commissions. If you have a property you don't want to deal with and you want a quick solution, call, text, or visit selltalon.com. Again, that's selltalon.com.
All right, we're here. All right. Well, I'm just waiting for that music to fade out. Got all these new things. It's like, oh yeah, let's do this, let's do that. So I'm just trying to get I'm looking at the camera now. Like, hey, am I in the right spot? Here I am. Cool. How you doing, Scott?
Good, man. Love the place. Love the upgrades that we've been doing here. This is awesome.
Backstory to the upgrades.
Yes.
Computer blew up. So it was like, oh, that's not good. But we were also already talking about getting new mic stands and kind of doing it. So we went all in. We just said,
perfect.
Hey, let's go, and it's been awesome. And for the listeners, Clint's in there right now doing the production, and he has access to talk to us and join us in the podcast if he wants to. Before we were kind of limited on how many mics could come into the video feed.
Yep.
But now we're not. So Clint, if you want to say hi, you're more than welcome to.
There you go.
There he is. Yeah.
He is a natural.
Welcome aboard, guys.
Yeah, thanks for joining us there, Clint. So, hey, this is a Now You Know podcast episode, which we kind of cover all kinds of different stuff.
Awesome.
And, you've been doing some projects with us and stuff that they haven't come out yet. You've been working on them, learning, piecing them together. We're excited for that.
Yeah.
We'll let you get into that a little bit. But, there's been some conversations about you and your music career that you have jumped into. And you've already started booking shows and you're doing this thing. And we had another artist here not too long ago. Her name was Jalissa Lopez.
Okay.
And she's young. And she is very, very talented. And she started to get into the show circuit. And it started happening right after she did a podcast with us.
Oh, good for her.
Started getting picked up into these things. But, I used to do music too. And there was a conversation I had with Clint that he had shared with me in regards to the knowledge you have in regards to artists being able to get money for their song being played in specific areas in specific ways at shows, and how to do that. From my understanding of what I did in the music industry is I would get paid for shows, or I would rent a venue and set up a lineup and do it that kind of way. And I would distribute my music online, and I would just help other people distribute their music online. Now we would get paid for the streams within the platform, but we were missing out on something. And I think there's something important to talk about for young artists and new artists to learn from you with the knowledge you have. So let's jump into that. Let's talk about your music name, what you're doing, and how you've established yourself correctly in the music industry to make sure you're getting the max available money and credit to you as far as royalties.
Yeah. I mean, you're right. It is something that most of it is not common knowledge. Everything you could theoretically look up under YouTube if you've got the time and the attention span to go through that. But believe it or not, most musicians don't have that.
Yeah.
Musicians are creators. So they're artistic and they love to create and write and do all of these things. But there is a business infrastructure that goes into it. And if you're not part of a record label, or you don't have a publishing company, you're not affiliated with certain organizations, it's a lot of little things that are extra paperwork, but they do matter in the course of if you're going to take yourself seriously and you want to do music as a living. So actually what I did is if I go all the way back to when I was playing in a college band and just doing rock bars and stuff. And then I got into the fire service pretty young, but I never lost sight of doing music. So what I did started to shift. Like I was writing public safety announcements as under the pseudonym Fireman Robb, and made me kind of a local celebrity, I guess you could say. But what I was doing at the time was I was establishing my own record label, my own music publishing company, and trying to learn all of that that has now come full circle into being able to reap the benefits of it. So a little bit about what goes into that is you have a couple different things that happen when you record a song.
Mm-hmm.
And there are some different licenses that are distributed. If you record a song, you go into the studio, you pay for that whole experience. You come out of it as an artist with both a sound recording license and you are the sound recording license and you are the music publisher. But most people just assume, okay, I'm now the owner of the song, and I go in and I put it on Spotify, and then Spotify gives me half of a penny, maybe less per stream. Now, actually, what Spotify is doing is they're not paying any artists until they've reached 1,000 streams on each song. So 1,000 streams is really only $5 or $6 if you're doing it right. But even still, they're not paying for that. So you pay money up front to get your stuff on Spotify. Personally, I go through CD Baby because it is a one-time fee for perpetuity. Like there's different ones where you can upload as much as you want monthly, but you got to pay monthly for the rest of your life. And what I do is CD Baby because let's say you pay $10 a song. Your song goes on there, and then what Spotify does is once you hit about 1,000 streams, they'll give you $5 3 months from now, and then you keep going. And it's not a lot, obviously, and most artists that are young and starting out are really low on that stream. But there are so many different other things that you can do. If you're playing live, then you need to establish yourself with a performance rights company. As an example, establishing and getting all your songs with a performance rights company like BMI, ASCAP, CSAC, you've probably heard those different names before. BMI is who I'm affiliated with, and that's where you get the royalties for being the songwriter. So you don't really get any of those when you're on Spotify. You just get its streams, you get a sound recording royalty. But most people are never affiliated with songwriting royalties and publishing royalties and these other things that come into it. So like BMI, as an example, if you're registering and you got your music through there, now that 1 penny or now that $5 per 1,000 streams becomes more like $8 or $9 because you're collecting your money appropriately through the sound recording and you're collecting appropriately through being the songwriter. And you've now played that song live. Let's say you play your 10 songs that you made live. You register those live works, and those live performance royalties also count towards what you do is you submit your set list. Like the other day, I went and played at a lobby bar. I did 3 originals throughout the course of that. Submitted those 3 originals as part of the performance rights organization because I do have my own publishing company and record label. And then it's about $4.20 per song that you play because you're playing your own song live.
Okay.
And so these companies are charging the venues performance rights for people to perform their music. And if you're a bar owner, you understand that pretty clearly. Like, a bar owner can't just stream a Spotify playlist. They're going to get shut down because, because these performance rights organizations, they say, hey, you don't have the right to do this in a public place. This costs you money. So bars have to get a specific license in order to even play Spotify. But where that comes into play for the artist is so now your sound recording is registered. Now your songwriting rights are registered. Now you're playing it live. And so, it's an extra $12 of your performance that you get at the end of the day. So it's kind of like getting tipped on top of it. And there's all these little things that if you set it up right, it runs itself. Excuse me. Once you set it up right, it just runs itself. And you can get a lot of different royalty streams through a lot of different avenues. So, and musicians, especially early on, they have to hustle and do that because you're probably, early on, you're going to be able to get a gig for, what do they say? Like exposure. Hey man, I'll give you exposure. Like you don't need to settle for that anymore. I mean, you get way more exposure on a Facebook post than you ever would for 20 people that would happen to be in the bar. So you don't have to play for exposure anymore. You can play and set a contract right for yourself. And I would recommend that anybody that wants to take themselves seriously, start off with $50 an hour. Say, hey, for $50 an hour, I'll come play at your place. But establish yourself as somebody worth paying for to come and do the service. You don't want to devalue yourself right out of the bat and saying, I'll just take any gig anywhere. And because not only does that hurt you, but that hurts other performing artists. Because if they know that they can get you for pennies on the dollar, then yeah, you'll get to play more, but you'll be playing for pennies on the dollar. And there's not enough solidarity in the music industry where we're all coming together and saying, hey man, if that venue doesn't want to pay you what you're worth, you don't have to play. You can literally set up a live stream in your basement and go make that same money. So there's just so many little things that you don't know. And I'm always happy to, when I run into new artists or even ones that are established that aren't like I got a question the other day. Hey, I'm on Spotify and iTunes. How did you get on Pandora? Because Pandora is a different beast with different requirements. And if you don't know that, your stuff's not streaming on Pandora and you don't know why. So even though that $5 per 1,000 that you're getting on Spotify, multiply that over now 12 or 13 music platforms, collect your publishing royalties and your sound recording royalties efficiently, and you have yourself the infrastructure in place to where the bigger you get, the bigger those streaming royalties are going to be.
I have a question regarding that. How are you collecting the publishing royalties? Is the streaming platform itself recognizing, because BMI is now involved, is there communication, is there integration where Spotify is making sure now you're getting the publishing pieces? How does that all work? Because that's kind of where the road ends for me, is like, well, what do I do? What's the next step? How do I ensure that that's actually being collected?
Well, a lot of depending on who your music distribution company is, like I mentioned, mine's CD Baby. Yeah. That's your initial port of entry. CD Baby, TuneCore, some of those other ones are your music distribution company for your sound recordings. Now, what they'll conveniently do for you is say, hey, David, for a fee, we'll also collect your publishing royalties. Meaning they'll go ahead and do the extra couple of steps to get the song affiliated from a songwriting royalty standpoint. They'll collect that money for you. They'll take, say, 15% off the top or whatever it is in the fine print and give it to you once that money comes back. So it's a great business model for the distribution companies because you pay extra. You'll probably pay an extra $30 when you set up your song, your single, and then they still get money off the top to go get it on your behalf. So they serve as the middleman, but they don't have to. You don't need a middleman in that situation. Even if you don't have a publishing company, you can be an individual songwriting publisher and go set yourself up through BMI. And it takes, I don't know, probably 15, 20 minutes for an individual person that's just got a couple songs and they're just uploading it in there. And now you bypass the middleman, and it's all about empowerment. Mm-hmm. It's all about empowerment in life, especially if you're going to work for yourself and you're going to be your own boss as a musician and songwriter. Get that stuff established now, because once the infrastructure's in, you're good. Now you release a new single and you have your little checklist of, is this registered with the Mechanical License Collective? Is it with BMI? Am I getting the songwriting? Am I getting publishing? Am I getting the sound recording? And you multiply those tiny little fractions of a penny over dozens of different revenues, and it's still not great when you're not streaming a ton, but it's something. It's something. If as an example, if I play a set list of 10 songs that I have recorded, then I get the songwriting royalties to the tune of about $42. Just because I played my own music in a live setting that's an established venue. And I went through the small paperwork thing of uploading the set list.
Right.
So it's kind of cool. It's real nerdy, I guess. But you have to, if you don't want to figure that out, you have to have somebody that's willing to do that extra dirty work to figure it out.
Yeah.
Because then, think about like what you guys are doing on some of your Instagrams and those things where you attach music to it.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes those go viral.
That's what my next question was,
Right.
When there's a song attached to a video and
Mm-hmm.
it continues to get plays over plays over plays, are the artists getting money for that? And how do you ensure that happens?
So it's up to the individual artist to sort that out, because Facebook and Instagram, they have their deals with all the music that's on there. So I could just use myself for an example. If you put me on a reel, that's then the sound recording that's being distributed. If I'm on a reel, but I make a lyric video, then I have a sync license element to that because I'm syncing my music to video, and that's kind of a different beast, but that's why you have these different organizations.
Right.
And like if you just used an artist and it's still, the way that money's getting collected for them is still going back to the individual fractions of a penny per stream and how long did that stream. So somebody has 10,000 views on a stream of something that you posted. That's money that goes back into their pocket. So that's cool too. So the artist benefits from having their music on anything that they can get it on, because something goes viral, it counts in their streams. And yeah,
That's good to know.
Right?
I didn't know. I didn't know that when I was in there, when I was doing the thing. I don't do it anymore, but
No, but it's kind of like what we'd been talking about in building some infrastructure for like your digital church and stuff is we use a lot of other people's music that's popular. And Clint and I were talking the other day, and it's like a lot of it is background music set to just set a theme or a mood for something else. Why don't we batch capture a bunch of our own background music? I'll just sit in that studio and play piano for 10 different songs or 10 different cuts that might fit with a nice feel or a vibe. And now we're getting that. We're getting some of those royalties and benefiting from some of these streams that go viral. So it's a beast. And we probably had a bunch of people check out that are already artists because they're like, I don't know, man, that's too much. Like,
Yeah.
I can't,
Oh, yeah.
I can't deal with it.
yeah, I got to do this and this and this.
Yeah,
and this.
but
Well, the money up
that's-
front's hard.
Yes.
That's the key thing. You're talking to a lot of people that are probably strapped for cash.
Yeah, and that's why I wouldn't recommend paying your distribution company to go collect that stuff for you.
Right.
Because chances are you're not going to make your money back on the $30 that if you have a single and you're starting out and you drop it in there and you pay $10 for the single to be out there, another $30 for them to collect all your sync licensing and performancing and stuff. What's $40? That's going to be then, let's say 10,000 streams before you break even. So is it worth it? In my opinion, no, because you don't need the middleman anymore. Like, it's not like there's these lords of the record labels, and if you're not signed as an artist, you have no access to any type of benefits or running your own business. You can now do it yourself. So that doesn't, like, affiliating with a performance rights organization doesn't really cost you anything. It just costs time to do it and set it up right. Sound Exchange is another organization that helps collect those uncollected royalties. And if your songs are up there, every now and then, a quarter, like a quarter of a year passes and you get a little statement that's like, oh, cool, the Mechanical Licensing Collective tracked down these unused royalties, and here's another $5, here's another $10, and again, it doesn't sound like much, but if you're an artist and you're pumping out albums every year and you're doing it right and you're on tour and even if you're on just like an acoustic tour, you're getting an extra $40 here, $50 in streaming here, $40 in publishing. It adds up over time. It's worth doing. These distribution companies, they rely on you to not know it and not do it.
Say that again. And hey, Clint, can you turn me up a little bit? I feel like I'm a little quieter than he is now. Sorry.
Yeah.
There we go. Say that again.
Yeah, it's kind of like any other industry. The larger organizations, like these large distribution companies, they rely on you not doing it. They want to support you,
right?
But they're not going to do a whole lot of effort to make sure you know how to do all of this stuff to get your money. Because if you don't get your money, it just kind of sits there as uncollected royalties. And if they have 50,000 young artists that have 1,000 streams, but nobody really knows how to collect their money, that goes back to them. So yeah, they advocate for you, but you still got to do all the legwork to get registered with them. They're not going to do that legwork for you. Once you're in, that's their job, is to do all of that actual work for you.
Yeah.
Okay, Scott, you did a set list at the lobby bar the other day. Here's your $20 because you did X amount of your own songs.
How did you come upon this information? I mean, it's not. I mean, you can YouTube and Google and all that stuff, but like, is that the route you went? Was just like, hey, how do I ensure I'm getting everything here? Or did you go to school? I mean, how'd you come across this information?
I'm crazy curious about how stuff works. I mean, whether it was fire department or anything that I'm involved in, I was always that kid that asked why all the time, and it just wasn't satisfied with because I said so, or nobody really knows. Like, especially now that information's out there. But really, where I got it was early on. I was recording all of this music for public service announcements, and we're doing pool safety, stop, drop, and roll, had these songs out there, and people would say all the time, like, oh, do you get royalties from that? And I was like, I don't know, should I? Because
That's a good question.
Yeah, because I didn't even know. And we still have, so it's probably been 14 years that my original music is the hold music at our big fire district's system. And so people then joke about that. Do you get royalties on that? And it's like, no. But now that I know how the system works, I could have if I would have set it up right back when it was.
Yeah.
So it was like, it was that curiosity of like, hey, your music is in here, your music's in there. Do you get paid for that? And it was like, no. But then you ask the question, well, why don't I? And it turns out why I wasn't was because I didn't have my stuff together and I didn't set it up right in the first place. So I had to learn all that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's from what you're telling me, it's just like any other business. You have to have all your licensing and your, insurance. Your insurance is you making sure you get paid and not, and then, and having your LLC and all that stuff, or being a sole proprietor, which most artists would be. It's a legit thing.
Yeah.
You
and
have
make
to
it
be legit.
Right.
And it's, what gets sucked into, what people get sucked into, and I know this was me too, and I'll admit it, is you assume, because at the time when I did this was 14, 15 years ago, right? So you assumed that when you were signing up with these distributors that was all going to be taken care of for you, because they didn't say it wouldn't. There wasn't a page on there that was like, hey, how to properly set yourself up to succeed in this. Yeah. There wasn't any of that.
There's no how-to, there's no nice how-to guide step-by-step to get that done.
Yeah.
Dude, I'll give you another example. You ever been to that local haunted house we have in Tucson, the Slaughterhouse? They've got like multiple haunted houses and all of that. Well, my buddy was early on starting it up, and they're like, we could really use help setting the scene with some soundscapes. And be really cool if we can make atmosphere where like the butcher shop matches some of the stuff that's going on in the background. And so I was like, that sounds fun. I'll hop in there and do that. So just went through this massive project of like, okay, we're in the butcher shop and we're like dropping and dragging chains and we're making different sounds. I got fly sounds added in because all of that stuff's really important to make this super cool vibe. And did it, gave it to them, and they're still using it today, and I never got a penny out of it. And you're like, well, you're doing it to help a friend. And then, you know, it was a small thing at the time, and then it grew. But then I go back to having known what I know now, those are live performances every time that they're out there. And if those works were registered and in the proper publishing databases, you know, the more successful they would get, the more successful I would be, and it would be great. But once all of that stuff is out there, it's hard to go back and sort that out and figure out the licenses and all of that. So you want to do it up front, and all of this stuff I didn't know. So learning from my failures of having all of this cool stuff that's out in the world that I never really received a dime from, but now moving forward, everything that I make is different. That learn from me and do it right now so that you're set up for 20 years from now if something pops off like, oh, I made some soundscapes at a haunted house and this haunted house is doing really, really well, that you actually benefit too.
Yeah, wow. You know, I missed the boat, man, because I had a particular track go all over the world. And I didn't have that in place. I mean, I did pretty well with the streaming stuff, but to know now that like there's stuff there's likely still money out there that I'll never get back. Because from what it sounds like is when you sign up and join like BMI, there's no retroactive, like they're not going to go back and try to account for every single thing that happened over the last 10 years, right? Like it doesn't sound like that's part of the gig.
I think there's some limitations on that. And on top of it, they just don't have the ability to go back and do all of that. What I've understood with like you can look it up, it's called the MLC, but the Mechanical License Collective, or they're building it as a nonprofit for people that can try to track this type of stuff down for unauthorized music use or stuff that has never royalties that have gone uncollected from other organizations. But if you're asking them, you know, that's a lot of proof that you then have to say, I was the owner of this. This is when it happened. This is when it started. I bet you if you're a huge artist signed to a record label that had something go viral before then, they'd have no problem like tracking that down for you.
Well, yeah, there's a lot more money in there.
Right.
Yeah.
But the little guys, even on some that's gone viral, not so much. That's why I recommend, like, if you have music out there that you're putting on your little reels or stuff, you never know when that stuff's going to go viral. And if all your infrastructure's in place, then you don't have to worry about it. Then you're just like, oh, cool, yeah, it went, and I'm collecting the publishing that I'm allowed to have.
Man, that's really, really interesting. And so you jumped into playing shows pretty quick. Like I remember you're in here like, yeah, I'm going to start playing music and I'm going to start playing at some venues. And then it was like, bam, it's happening. And now, I mean, I know you were playing at like a golf club and you played at a bar.
Going to San Diego.
Yeah, you got something coming up in San Diego, right? So you're already going, you know, you're leaving the state and going and playing somewhere else. What advice do you have for artists that are looking to start booking shows? Because I know there's a confidence factor that comes into it.
Right.
Am I good enough to do it? Mm-hmm. Are people going to listen? You know, and another thing that people get caught up in is you kind of covered this too, is like saying, you know, you go and play at a bar, don't worry about, you know, the exposure at that point, right? Because what also happened is what I saw in the music scene that I was involved in is your draw gets taken advantage of too.
Yeah, that's true.
Right. So like they would be like, hey, we're going to have you come and play at the show, but you bring 40 people with you. Well, now you're bringing 40 people to see blah, 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 and blah, 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 too, right? Like, and there was nothing, you know, for that. So I think what happens, too, is I think from my experience and what I saw was people get caught up in the draw, how many people they're going to be able to bring. Right. So, like, what you're doing, I don't think the bar is necessarily concerned if you're bringing 40 people or not that night, right? Because it's not completely focused on the act itself.
Yeah, it really depends on what you're signing up to do.
Right.
So I'll give you an example. I work with this company out of Miami that books high-end bars and resorts and stuff, but your background music. And so you get your, like my rate's $100 an hour more if they make you bring your own sound or whatever. So I sign that in advance that just says, okay, I'm going to go do that. And the good thing about that is I don't have to care who shows up or who doesn't. You're entertaining, but in a different way. Like they're hiring you to do background or atmosphere, and you just kind of do that. But if you're good at what you do, you're still finding ways to engage people, keep them there, keep them drinking, keep them happy, keep them eating food, because that benefits the bar. If it benefits the bar, then the word's going to get around and you're going to get back. But yeah, kind of for those gigs, that's what I do. But I do lots of different gigs and other gigs, and it's kind of an individual negotiation, which is tough if you're starting out. Because I think what people get fixated on is, well, do I have enough Spotify followers? Do I have enough do I have enough streams of this music that I'm making? And it doesn't matter at this stage. It really doesn't. Because like I said, you're getting $5 per 1,000 streams. So you can artificially try to inflate your streams and try to make you look like this thing, but don't do that, because you're already starting from a place of inauthenticity. And you want to be true to yourself. You want to say, you know what? I'm new, but I'll play for 3 hours. I'll hustle. I'll show up on time. I'll be professional. I will thank everybody that's there. All of just being a professional goes a long way. And I already knew that because I had a past career in the fire service. And so, yeah, I hopped into it pretty fast, but I've been doing music nonstop. I just hadn't been out playing. Mm-hmm. So you'd be like, oh, well, what does this dude have to say? He's got like 9 monthly followers or so, or whatever, 9 monthly listeners on Spotify or whatever. But it's because I'm not advertising that. What I'm doing is I'm advertising the product that I can bring live. And I would suggest that new artists focus on that.
And you're making a lot more money doing that
100%
than you'll ever make on streaming.
And all of that is just kind of fake anyway. Because, well, chances are you haven't built the infrastructure and to benefit from any of your streaming. But on top of that, it doesn't matter. Like, it's a cool resource for when you're at a venue and you can say, like, yeah, go to my Spotify account and you can see if you like this music, it's available on my Spotify and people can get it. They add it to playlists and do that. But don't focus on that. Focus on the product, and you are the product and what you have to bring, your ability to perform, to play well, to engage. That should be where all your time is spent, and fraction of the time being spent on trying to boost up your fake Spotify followers and playlists, because that's going to come naturally, man. When you're in there and you're doing a great job and you're getting more gigs and you're getting people's attention, let that do the work than you trying to like, oh, please follow me on Instagram. I need an extra follower because then I'm going to have value. It doesn't matter.
The optics are they're crap. I mean,
yeah, because it's all crap nowadays anyway. Like, just go in and do your job and do it well.
Stop.
Yeah.
Stop with that, man.
That's not
what we're trying to do here. We're trying to be a rock star.
Yeah.
Come on. I'm trying to be famous tomorrow, man.
Well,
I'm trying to be rich tomorrow. I'm trying to be famous tomorro.
Yeah.
I'm trying to be just balling out tomorrow.
I know. And fake fame is pretty dope.
Yeah. Gosh. Well, that's a lot of stuff, right? It's like just a lot of the noise. And it's great that you came here to talk about that, because we cleared up a lot of the noise. And you have to be serious about what you're doing, just with anything else, right? Like, we talk about the founder here at the studio a lot, with McDonald's, right? Like, everybody, perceives it as just overnight success, but there was just so many things that happened in the mean to make it happen to that success, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't like, boom, there it is. Like, there's all kinds of work that happens in the background, and music, all the background stuff is you making sure you have all your licensing in line and everything's set up.
And you making sure you know your own songs backwards and forwards, and you learn how to present and perform. You learn how to do it with confidence. I'll tell you one thing from me is I was always playing while having a full-time job in the fire service. I was always like gigging every now and then. I'd come out of the woodwork and do a show, or I'd play with somebody. But you can't get confident at what you're doing with that little reps. You know, I can say, well, I'm a good musician, but if you're lacking the confidence because you don't perform much, it's going to show. I had this guy was awesome. He was a bellhop in Austin, and we were out there to play like a big show at Bub's barbecue house, and he was like, "Oh, you guys here to play?" Like, he must have knew that we were musicians. And you're like, yeah. He's like, "I got one piece of advice for you." "What's up, man?" It's like, "Don't play scared. Don't play scared, baby." Because they can hear it in the music.
Don't play scared,
and
baby.
That's what he told me. And I was like, that's some of the truth. The best performance advice I ever got is people want you to have confidence. They want you to be successful. Like it's uncomfortable. If you were like nervous and sweating right now and you're having a difficult time, couldn't really make eye contact, we couldn't have a conversation, it reflects on me and it reflects on the crowd. And so when people are up there and they're just so swallowed up in their own nerves, you're watching them and you're kind of cringing too. And you're just like, oh, when's this going to be over? But how you
awkward.
build that up is sets and reps, just like anything else. Look at Oral Valley Church of the Nazarene. For the past over 2 years now, I've done probably 130 services. And that's sets and reps. That's getting in there and performing and practicing and strengthening your voice and working on your delivery. And when you're doing it in church, you're doing it for a great cause.
Yeah.
If people don't realize that, like everybody that's there when you're on the worship arts team and you're delivering that to them, they're singing along. They want the experience. And so, you know, we're a large church at OVCN, but it's a great place for that type of stuff. So young artists starting up, there's a lot of opportunities through different churches to get your sets and reps in, and also be surrounded by great people and great messages. And if you can't find gigs to get out there right away, you can still build up sets and reps in all sorts of different areas.
Right. Absolutely. No, that's great advice. Get involved with the church because you're covering so much ground there.
Yeah. Right.
Personally and
yeah. And surrounded by great people, like everybody on the worship arts team that is like, you're in it together and you're in it for one cause. And for me, I didn't go to church until the last couple of years of my life. Yeah. We had talked about that before. And just surrounding yourself by a different group of people that think differently and think more positively. And
it's crazy how much the world changes when you do that, man. I can't, I mean, people are going to say what they're going to say about people that go to church, but I'm just telling you from somebody that grew up not going to church, and how much has your life changed?
Oh yeah. It's night and day.
Yeah.
It's night and day, honestly. And I wouldn't have even known that. And so that's also why I kind of use my performances. There's a little music ministry element to it, because people like you and I didn't know a single Christian worship tune, as an example.
Yeah.
Never, ever. Not an artist, not an ever. And there's a lot of good artists and good music in there with good messages that I never heard of. So I like getting out beyond the church, doing shows, and then every now and then you mix in a gospel tune or something that's interesting and unique, and it's great. It gives it a different flavor that otherwise people like us would have never heard.
Yeah. It's awesome.
It's cool. Yeah.
Awesome. Hey, so we're running low on time here, but there's something I want to cover that you're working on, a project in particular that's going to be coming out soon. Do we have a date on that yet, or is it still TBD, to be determined here?
No. Well, what I'd like to start doing is start booking some shows, probably May, for this particular project. I'm going on a little mini SoCal tour and doing kind of the bar circuit and stuff. But in the background, I've got another album brewing. And really what I realized, to kind of bridge the music ministry together, is I had this collection of, come to find out, songs that were actually letters to God. And I didn't even really realize that at the time, but I had these songs that were like, some of them were, hey, if you find some time, I could use a sign, or like some of them were being angry. And I didn't have any type of relationship with God growing up, but I always knew like he was there and something was going on, but I just thought he was some guy in the sky that didn't have enough time for me. So when things would get hard, I would ask questions, and I felt like I didn't really get any answers, and it was probably because I wasn't a good enough person, and like I had these misconceptions. But what they were is a series of these letters that kind of tell my own story in a way. And so I had crafted these things, these letters, into songs, and weaved in a little bit of you could say personal testimony or story. And yeah, what I'd like to do is I'd like to be doing those all summer, because right now I'm booking just a lot of local stuff or here and there bar shows. But as an artist that writes, you want to sing your own stuff. And I've got catalogs of my own stuff, but I want to continue to evolve. And so it's like a 60-minute musical hybrid type of testimony. Is it a testimony? Is it a worship night? Is it a musical? Is it something that you could just sit down and listen to? It's all of it.
Yeah.
And it's cool. And I want to see if it's worth doing. So I'm going to start booking out some of those in probably different local churches and venues, and kind of see what it is, so people can get to know me and my story and my challenges and background, and hopefully have it be relatable to people. Funny stories, sad stories. You'll laugh, you'll cry, you'll be inspired. And that's what I want to do for people, to kind of shift out of that digital, like, let's go show up together in something. Let's have a real human experience. And I just thought, with what I have right now, what is the most authentically human thing that I can do? And for me, it was this. Let me get out, let me get in it with the people and share some songs that are part of my story, and turn it into an inspiring event for people that's family friendly, and probably an hour and a half, however we want to make it. And so thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah, love it. No, thanks for sharing. How do people reach out to you? How do they find you online? Where do they find you?
So I have a music website, scottrobbmusic.com. All the tour dates and the different things that I'm doing are in there. I also have, Instagram, YouTube sites. You got like 9 or 10 monthly listeners on Spotify.
There you go.
But remember, it's not about that, because it doesn't matter.
And you know what? It takes one song to kind of change that for a while.
Yeah.
And that happened to me. Yeah. It just takes one. And you'll get there. But but everything else that you're doing in a strategic way that's benefiting you.
Yeah. And the way that I see it is I'm already there.
Yeah.
Because it's the journey of what you're like, oh, you could spend your whole life just making music and sharing it with people, and I get to do that. So I feel like, okay, I'm there. Anything else is just bonus. And it's all because of all the infrastructure you take the time to put in place. You're getting a lot of different royalties on things that don't show up on your monthly listener playlist.
Yeah. It's so awesome. Well, hey, thanks for doing this podcast with us. What the listeners don't know is this is the first one we've done with the whole new setup we have.
I know, right?
Yeah,
and it's awesome.
It sounds great. It feels great.
Yeah.
If you have any feedback, please let us know. You can reach out to us at contact@ltdmedia.net. Any suggestions you have, if you want to be a guest on the program, you're always welcome to. And again, thank you to the advertisers that were put on the podcast with us. We appreciate you so much. Also want you to remind you, if you live in Marana, Arizona, or Northwest Tucson, to go and check out our subsidiary companies. This is Marana This is Miranda.com, Local Miranda, and localmiranda.com. Check us out on socials. Follow those. Find good things to do. Find good places to eat. We appreciate you so much. Have a good one.